Okay, everyone. Feeling the pressure for your upcoming data science exam? Don't worry, you are in exactly the right place. This explainer is going to walk you through everything you absolutely need to know for Units 1 and 2, so you can walk into that test feeling confident. So here's our game plan. We'll start with the big picture stuff. What even is data science? Then we'll dive into its core parts. After that, we'll get our hands dirty with our main tool, Python, and see it in action. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with a quick revision of the key points you've got to remember for your exam. Let's get started. All right, first section, let's tackle the big question. What exactly is data science? You hear this term thrown around all the time, right? Let's break down what it really means, especially for you and your exam. You see it everywhere. It's the magic behind the Netflix shows that get recommended just for you, and it's how Amazon seems to know exactly what you want before you even do. But what is it really? Let's peel back the layers. This is the easiest way to think about it. Imagine you're a detective. All the data out there, well, that's your collection of clues, fingerprints, witness statements, locations. Data science is just the process of piecing all those clues together to figure out the story they're telling and, to solve the case. Now, for your exam, you are going to want to remember this formal definition. The key word here is interdisciplinary. This is super important because data science isn't just about coding, and it isn't just about stats. Its real power comes from combining statistics, computer science, and real-world knowledge of a specific field, whether that's banking, healthcare, or anything else. So, where do we find all these clues for our detective work? Well, the data is collected from countless places you interact with every single day. Every time you buy something online, like a post on social media, fill out a customer survey, or search for something on Google, you're generating data that can be analyzed. And this slide really drives the point home. Look how widespread its applications are. It's not just a tool for tech companies anymore. Data science is being used across pretty much every professional field to make smarter, data-driven decisions. Let's look at some real-world examples. In healthcare, it's being used to analyze patient data to predict the chance of a disease, sometimes way before symptoms even show up. And in marketing, it helps companies figure out if their expensive ad campaigns are actually working by looking at customer reactions and sales data. In banking, it's the engine behind those systems that can spot a fraudulent credit card transaction in less than a second. And in a factory, it can analyze production lines to find tiny little problems, which improves quality and makes the whole business way more efficient. Okay, so we know what data science does. Now let's pop the hood and take a look inside. In this next section, we're going to explore the core components that actually make all of this stuff work. Think of these as the main ingredients in the recipe for data science. You've got data itself, then big data, machine learning, statistics, and programming. For this explainer, we're going to focus on the key ideas you need from these pillars to pass your exam. So it's really important to get this. We're not just dealing with any old data. We're often dealing with big data. We're talking about data on a scale that is just massive. Think about the millions of photos and status updates uploaded to Facebook every single minute. Our normal software just can't handle it. It needs special tools and techniques. Now, for your exam, you absolutely need to know these characteristics of big data. They're often called the 7 V's, but pay special attention to the first 3. Volume is the sheer, mind-boggling amount of data. Velocity is the incredible speed at which it's all being created. And variety means it comes in all sorts of different forms: text, images, audio, you name it. All right, so we've covered the what and the why of data science, and we've talked about the massive scale of big data. So now let's get into the how. How do we actually work with all this data? Well, we need a powerful tool, and our primary tool for this course is the programming language Python. To get started, we use something called the Anaconda distribution. And the reason is super simple. It bundles everything we need, Python itself, plus all the specialized tools for data science into one easy installation. It's the standard for a reason, and trust me, it makes our lives a whole lot easier. Before we can do anything with data, we have to understand how Python stores different kinds of information. It uses something called data types. You've got numeric types for numbers, like your age or the price of something. You have sequence types for ordered collections, like a sentence or a list of your favorite movies. And then you have other types like dictionaries, which are great for storing pairs of things, like a contact list with names and their phone numbers. Okay, listen up, because this is a very common exam question. The difference between a list and a tuple. The key word you need to remember is mutability. A list is mutable, which means it's changeable. Think of it like a grocery list you write in pencil. You can add stuff, you can erase stuff. A tuple, on the other hand, is immutable. Once you make it, it's final, like a signed contract. You'd use a tuple for data that should never change, and a list for things you expect to update. So, we've got our data stored in different types. That's a great start. But how do we actually do anything with it? That's where operators and functions come in. These are the tools that let us manipulate, compare, and actually work with our data. The easiest way to think of operators is as the action words, the verbs of Python. They're the special symbols that perform operations. You have arithmetic operators for math, relational operators for making comparisons, logical operators for combining true or false statements, and a few others we'll see. The ones you'll know best are the arithmetic operators. I mean, you'll recognize these from math class, and they're essential for all sorts of data analysis. The one that might be new to you is the modulus operator, that little percent sign. It just gives you the remainder of a division, which sounds weird, but it's super useful for things like finding patterns in data. And our other key tool is a function. A function is basically like a recipe. It's a named, reusable chunk of code that does one specific thing. So instead of writing the same lines of code over and over again, you just call the function by its name. It makes your code so much cleaner and easier to manage. Wow, okay, we have covered a huge amount of ground from the big ideas of data science all the way down to the nitty-gritty of Python. So let's quickly summarize the absolute most important points you need to have locked in for your exam. This right here is your final checklist. Seriously, feel free to pause and make sure you can explain every single one of these points. Know the definition of data science. Know the key V's of big data. Be able to name the core data types and, most importantly, explain the difference between a list and a tuple. And finally, know what operators and functions are for. Everything we've talked about today gives you the foundation, but the real power, the real excitement of data science comes from applying these tools to questions and problems that you are actually curious about. So, what will you discover? The possibilities are endless. Good luck with your studies.